can't remember who I learned this from, but one visual or external factor that I've worked in with our players as well as camps is talking about having eyeballs on your shoulders. Okay, I don't know why it resonates with players, but as they make that move off their midline, I'm sure you guys have this happen with your players, that at times as they make the crossover, their shoulders just go with the ball, and they're wondering why the ball is going behind them, or it's going off midline. But start really focusing, if I'm with my partner, as I'm making that crossover, that I'm fighting to almost like box out the ball, or get my eyeballs to be facing my partner as I continue to finish that move. Okay, so let's go either midline as the attacker, to our defender, or forcing them to go crossover. Okay, we'll do crossover to the right. Okay, so you can hit the ball off the right side of their midline or right down their midline. Good, that's a great crossover right there. So once again, as they're working these reps, these last couple balls, and we're looking on the same side of the net as I am, good lift to this ball when we're talking about digging into the ball. A nice high dig that's giving our setters time to get to the net, to get under that ball, to give us options when it comes to when we start running our offense and adding, sort of combining all of our skills together. Okay? Good, so we would go through some of the series, we won't do all of them today. You guys can hold balls, thank you. Okay? Some of the series we would do, you can, like I said, you can either do one focus, so whether it's midline, working hand digs, working crossover, you could go into some floor skills, working on a side slide. I don't typically train a ton of like the barrel roll or over the shoulder roll, but those are other ones that you can add, and depending on the accuracy of your attackers, you can really dive into a couple of those. But one thing that we've sort of discovered this spring is anytime we're doing individual based rep work, is adding one or the other so that they don't get caught in the mundane, like it's reps rather than once they get into competition mode, or if you have an attacker that doesn't hit it right down their midline, they're like, yeah, but coach, like they didn't hit it down my midline, and the argument could be, well, when you're playing against an opponent, they're not looking and saying, hey, I'm hitting down your midline, or I'm hitting down the line, or this time you're doing crossover. That's typically the way you can sort of say, hey, we're working on these two combined so that we can be better and prepared for when it is even more random in live play, okay? All right, so what we're gonna do next is, how much time do I have? I didn't ask. Till what time? 2:15. Perfect, 15 minutes. We can do that. All right, so what we're gonna do is, when it comes to, I'm gonna have Bree, this is something you can do from a coach on box. I don't have a box today, and I don't wanna be gassed talking to you guys, because that would be uncomfortable. So what we're gonna have, another thing we do, so once we've gone through individual reps, okay, so what we would typically do next is talking about the different relationships on our court defensively. Okay, so one thing we found to be really successful is breaking down each of the pickleball, or balls, I actually got this phrase from Mike, but using a pickleball as a ball that puts your team in a pickle, right? So the roll shots, the tips, the off speed, any of those types of things. Okay, so what we'll do is we're gonna work on the right back, left front relationship. So if I can have a line, one person in right back, one person in left front, and then let's have a line on the opposite side of the net for my extras to be fill-in for the off blocker, and then a line off to the right sideline here to be extras for my right back. Okay, so I'm gonna have Bree, I saw her dishing up some pretty good pickleballs during the competitive segment, so we're gonna have her attack these. But you can also in your gym either do this from a coach on box if you're trying to work on your attackers developing their skills off speed. This is something that you can do either off of a coach toss. You can have your players up on the box. You could add a live pass set to attack to work on these. There's multiple ways that you can continue to build the layers of this kind of a drill to get what you want, and add multiple focuses if you need to. Okay, so the relationship we're gonna work, I'm gonna start at the net. Okay, I know in our gym we pinch our blockers. If you have your blockers start out wide, we'll have you start at the edge of the circle here. Okay, so we're gonna be working the relationship of our right back and our left front. Okay, so this is more from a perimeter defense. so that if the ball's set outside, my off blocker would typically be taking one step towards the center of the court. Our right back would be pushing back down the line. So we're talking about this ball that is anywhere from, I'm just gonna enter a couple of these, but anything that's from the hairpin tip over the top, okay? Any ball that's kind of the roll shot that's on the inside of the middle blocker, as well as sort of this ball that is usually like the absolute cluster. And it's just like a dumpster fire of like, oh boy, like how are we gonna handle that? How do we get ourselves out of that pickle, okay? So, I'm gonna have Bree, I'm gonna toss these balls to her, okay? So let's say once you dig, you will have kind of one of the people off be a target. Once you dig, you go to target, put a ball in the ball cart, and then you can sort of alternate between the two lines, okay? Sound good? All right, so ball. So you can see that that ball right there is pretty wicked, right? So Bree's goal is to challenge anything that's gonna make these two people communicate, okay? Ball. Okay, so I will say too, in our gym, okay, so our responsibilities that we talk about, so down the line, obviously work, giving, utilize the phrase of hand on ball for giving some line and head on ball if they're taking the line. This would be a relationship. We're in a perimeter defense whenever we take a hand on ball, because we're saying we think that our line defender can dig some of these balls, whether it's maybe not the best shot of that attacker. So in this scenario, they still are responsible for sprinting up the line. And the one thing that I would encourage you all to also start to work in, we don't have them because we don't have live block, but encouraging your blockers to come down and be responsible, but to use their hands to take some of the like ultra hairpin tips that are essentially grazing down the backside of your blockers so that they don't get their knees taken out by the line defender, okay? So Bree's gonna be sort of pickling balls anywhere from like the 5 to 8 feet that's gonna engage these two. And one thing I'd like to see is whoever sort of has the best read, call it early to take that ball, okay? Ball. Great idea. So you can see that is making that off blocker think, oh boy, do I have that ball or is it theirs? Good. Ball. Ready, ball? Good, okay? And the other thing that I would want you guys to think about too, for us, we ask that our off blocker or other defenders, if we have a right back defender in this particular relationship, if they are the setter, we want the off blocker to be a little bit more aggressive so we don't have to be in an out of system situation. You can decide what works best. If you have great out of system opportunities, your defensive player or your libero is great at putting up a predictable ball, then you can maybe say, setter, be aggressive because we can utilize our attackers differently. But if you don't have that, decide what works best in your gym, okay? The other thing that we would do, I didn't put it down before, is typically when we get into these reps, we'll put down parameters as to where we feel like we can be successful defensively to then turn into offense by putting tape down on the ground. So we might put on the edges, essentially, of the circle. Typically, the basketball circle is usually a really good point of, I guess, a guideline, because it's pretty much smack dead center in most courts in any gym. But we'll extend tape to the 10-foot line. For us, we extend it as far as 12, 13 feet, because we can still run our offense from there. But once you start running these types of drills, you can say, hey, we're gonna go to 20 reps, but it must be at least the height of the antenna or more, and it has to be land in this box in order for us to count the reps, okay? The next relationship we would work is now let's have our off blocker. You guys are working middle back, okay? So we're still gonna stay in a perimeter defense, but same thing, now our attacker can work driven ball down the line. It can be a roll shot that makes our right back have a crossover move into the court, or we can have like a deep roll shot over the top, a deep throw over the top that makes either our right back fight for their hands and or our middle back range to the corner over the top, okay? Let's see that one. Ooh, that's close. I would have said that might be a challenge review. Pretty good. Okay, so being stopped and balanced as our defenders, okay, as we're starting and anticipating a ball. So one thing I would want, and I would ask for my right back defender, is that we're getting a definitive move from base, okay, prepared for any set or dump. And then as that ball gets set, making a good move down the line, having our right foot down the baseline so that we're prepared for first and foremost the ball that comes down our midline or a step away from midline, and then we're prepared to move. What starts to happen is because we were just working on the roll shot, then that defender starts cheating off the line. They're like, oh, like I'm going to sort of make a gap or close the gap on the difference of what could potentially happen. So as coaches, you want to keep a good eye on if they're making sort of a change, and then it's good pickleball, or that's a good pop quiz from Bree of, oh no, we're working down the line, but she's going to mix in a shot that challenges that line defender so that they're not cheating, okay? It's a good driven ball down the line, making sure that we're anticipating or expecting that first ball first and foremost, and then we work from there, okay? Oh. Good, that's a great high dig right there. Oh. Okay, so what happened there? Yeah, we were cheating, right? So once again, like this is a good drill to work because we start to recognize as defenders, are we being disciplined by staying at base, or are we starting to say, oh, well, we're working on this relationship, so I'll cheat over to this way. And then when I'm working on the other relationship, I'll start cheating the opposite way. So that's where, as either the coach on the box or as somebody who's facilitating, Bree's doing a really good job of moving the ball around to keep the defenders honest, okay? Since I'm running